Hi, Valerie Dawn here. Want to take your quilt a step above the ordinary? I'll show you how with this elegant two-color double binding that's easier than it looks. Let's get started. This is a simple binding. We're doing a double binding, and so calculate the perimeter of the quilt. So that's all four sides, and that will give you how much the minimum length. Now I cut this 1 5/8. This is my inside border, 1 5/8 inches. So at least enough strips to go around 260. Then I just splice them together. Now you just go corner to corner like that. And I draw a little, just a line. And I put a couple of pins in it. Stitch from edge to edge. Make sure that once you open it, it will go flat. Because if you go this way, you're going to get a mitered corner, not a straight strip. All your strips, stitch them together like this, and then you just take your ruler and trim it to 1/4 inch. Press it open. For the outside binding itself, I like to double this. It makes a much more robust, stronger binding because the edge of a quilt gets a lot of wear and tear if you're using that quilt on a bed. And it will just last so much longer, and it also just gives it a nice fullness on the binding. It looks much better than a single layer. And so I cut 3 inch, and because I had 260 and it's 40 inches wide, give or take a 1/2 inch, and so 260 divided by 40 is 6.5 strips. So I cut 7. Now, if I need one more, because it does take up some of the fabric when you miter the corner, but I'm going to go 7 strips at 3 inches. Okay, now I have those cut, and I just do the same thing with them to miter them. And just trim each one to a 1/4 inch. Take them over to your iron, press them open. And then trim the dog ears. Okay, trim up your edges of your quilt. This is the Starlight Crossings quilt. I have a video on that. I'll leave the link below. I'm just going to have a little bit of this showing, like 1/8 of an inch, but I still like to double it because it makes it easier to attach. Now, the other thing is line it up so that your splice doesn't end up on the corner. I don't necessarily pin the whole thing on this layer. I'm just going to pin it along to get started, and then I'll just start stitching as I go. Right, line that up to the edge. You're stitching through all layers, including your binding and backing. It helps if you have a walking foot. This little old sewing machine of mine has a built-in walking foot. I love this little old machine. This is like the 2 centimeter mark or 5/8. And if you want, you can put a little piece of tape there. But you line up as you stitch. Right, my finger's out of the way. You line up with the ruler on your sewing machine as you stitch. And this can get a bit bulky with a big quilt, but you can do this on your own sewing machine. Save yourself some money. Long arm quilters will do this for you too, but it's an extra charge usually. There's no reason you can't do this part yourself. Now I'm going to fold that over when I'm done. I will trim some of that off. I'm only going to have like 1/8 of an inch of this showing. You can make it a 1/4 inch, and I've also seen them where they run piping through the middle, but that I find over time will cause the quilt to fray, so it's something more that I would reserve for a wall quilt or an art quilt. Make sure it's laying nice and flat and doesn't pucker. Don't pull it too much and don't leave it too slack. It's got to be just right. Now, it takes a bit of practice because you're not watching the stitch here. You're watching right here. And I like to stop with the needle down so that it doesn't slide out from under. When you come to the end, just cut that strip off flush and fold it over, and then attach the binding to the next edge and start again. They overlap in the corner. I've gone around and trimmed the whole thing to about 3/4 of an inch. I take my wider one, which is 3 inches wide, and I fold it right in half. I like to start near a corner, but not on a corner. Leave enough of the tail there to attach to when you come around. And lay it right here. And I leave about 1/8 of an inch there. And I pin it on. Alright, try not to stretch it, but try not to let it be too loose because it will buckle up as you stitch. And that's it about now. What we will do, we're going to stitch along here, and then we will turn it over, and we're just going to have this scant. It's a little more than an eighth of an inch, and then we will continue to fold that over. And that on the back we're going to hand stitch. Hand stitching the binding on the back is authentic quilting, and it's going to keep the front flawless. It will make your quilt truly show worthy. When we did these, we just overlapped them and chopped them off. With this, we're going to turn the corner. Alright, so I'm just going to stitch down here. Now, here's how you turn the corner. Now we need a miter right across there. I'm just going to pin it like that for now. Okay, it's straight here. Turn it up like this. Alright, so it's just looking like that. And then make sure it stays folded in two. And then bring it down. And let's pin on either side of that. Okay, now we're going to stitch up to that, cut the thread, and stitch to that. Alright, for now just keep pinning it all the way around. We've made it all the way around. All 4 corners are pinned, and I've come back to the start. Now, miter this one on an angle and just lay it here. The other one is folded together and lay it right inside like that. Now, it overlaps. The stitching line is going to be right there. That's where just so you can see, because this is very black, this is this strip here, and it's mitered. Here's the other corner of it right there. Lay that one inside, so they have to overlap. So the stitching line will be right about there, and the cutting line of this one will be about there. Nah, it's a little too much. Right there. So on that side, and then make sure you do the same on the other side so that you miter it in the right direction. Okay. Now, lay that open. Okay, this is the one I trust. I'm going to put it on my board. Okay, don't accidentally cut your quilt. Straighten that up a little more. Just want to run away on me. Alright. Now, there. And then I'll place these together, pin them together, and take them to the sewing machine and stitch along here that 1/4 inch. All right, so we have that stitched together. Finger press it open. We'll just snip those dog ears off and then fold it in two, and there it fits together perfectly, and you'll never tell where the start was. I've added the tape here at 1/2 inch because I want to stitch exactly 1/2 inch from the edge. Now you see my fold here. We are going to start right there in that corner. Don't stitch over the fold. We want to be right in that niche at 1/2 inch. So lower your needle. Okay. Press your foot down, get the pins out of the way. You need a lock stitch. And then stitch. It's going to be 1/2 inch from the raw edge. Okay, now just to show you, that leaves a nice 1/4 inch of my double binding showing, and we stitch all the way to the other corner, and we'll stop at the fold again. All right, we stitched all the way to the end here. Now we're going to stop right in that before, like, you don't stitch over that bulk. We're going to stop right there. I'm going to take my pin out. So I'm going to just mark that with my I'm not sure I can make a full stitch there. And then back stitch. So I have stitched right up to that, but not over it. And then the next side will start right in there again. And you do all 4 sides like that. It's time to turn these corners. For this step, I like these little wonder clips. You don't need to use those. You can always use straight pins if you don't have them, but I really like them because I don't poke my fingers. Now, here's the corner. I'm just going to trim some of that bulk off ever so slightly because it makes it easier to turn the corner. Just a nip. And don't cut the binding. All right. Okay. Here's your corner. Here's what we do. Tuck that under. On this side, fold it down. Okay, so you see it's folded down on that side. I'm just going to use a clip to hold it in place. So we've got a nice mitered corner there. And since our fold is under this side, this is the thinner side. So that's where I'm going to fold this down so that I kind of even out the bulk. The fold is here on the front side and there on the back side. And I just hold it in place like that. I'm going to put a clip on the corner. First I'll clip it right here. And then I'm going to put a clip right on the corner. First of all, I just want you to see how nice and neat that is. And then I'll clip it. When we're hand stitching, we're going to just adjust this slightly. We're going to stitch along the edge here. We'll also stitch all the way around the corner with hidden applique stitches. Like I said, when I'm pinning. And if you need to, pull that out. If this is a little bit too much, you can just be very careful not to cut this. Get that out of the way. I'm just going to trim a little bit off. Just make it a little. Sometimes I need to do that and sometimes I don't. And if you want that binding to come further down, just cut it wider. This was a 3 inch. wide when I cut it. You could make it 3.5, and then you'd have another 1/4 inch to pull it along here more. It just takes a little bit more fabric. Clip this in place all the way around the perimeter. This is the cozy part. Just put your feet up, turn on your favorite music, and enjoy some hand stitching thread therapy. And that's it. A simple 2-color binding that's going to make your quilt look outstanding. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. And check out my other quilt tutorials linked below. See you next time, and happy quilting!